Okay. Hello, everyone. I think we're live. I'm just checking on the other screen to see if we are live everywhere. Bum, bum, bum. Are we live elsewhere? Says we should be live on YouTube. Let's just give it another second. There we go. Yep, we're live on YouTube and I can see my face on another screen. So, welcome everyone to the session. We're going to give everyone a few minutes just to come in. We've got a couple of people already joining. Hello, everyone, for making it. So let's get started, Pete. Like, we've been talking about this for a long time, haven't we? And kind of throwing the idea
Yeah, at
around.
least a few months.
Yeah.
So was this conceived? I think we were either at, was it World Tour where we first kind of mooted this idea, or was that
Yes. It was when we were
Lemon's calling?
walking back from
Yes.
the House of Ben party, House of Cloud
Yeah.
party. House of Ben,
Yeah.
the one where Ben was doing his thing. Yes, the
House of
House of Cloud
Cloud.
party, and you're now
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
little natter on the way to the tube stop. So,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
introduce who we are, what we're doing here. Hi, my name's Paul Batterson. I've been working with Salesforce for a number of years, and people have probably seen books. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you've definitely heard my voice before or seen me on here. And yeah, that's pretty much me. Written a couple of Apex books and just excited to be doing this.
And I'm Peter Chittum. I have been working in the Salesforce ecosystem since 2010, mostly working for Salesforce, and I've always been in really a developer enablement, like training and then developer relations role. So probably the thing that most people might know that I've done, even though my name's not on it, is the JavaScript for Salesforce developers Trailhead module, which, yeah, I've shared that I've done it, but it's, obviously Trailhead modules don't get the author byline on them. So,
No.
but pretty proud of that. Like if I've contributed one thing that I think is really of value to the Salesforce developer world, that's probably it. So,
well, that's one more thing that that a lot of people can put their hands up to. Like, I like that module as well. It's that and your command line for admins kind of sessions. I remember them.
oh yeah, so that was if you can write a Salesforce formula, you can use the command line. So, yeah, so there's quite a few recordings of that. Initially, I initially called it "Don't Fear the Command Line," and
Yeah.
then I thought actually making that comparison, because I mean, command line commands are basically functions. So you put something in and something comes out, and if you put the same thing in, the same thing always comes out, and then you can chain them together, which people don't really think of that as far as Salesforce functions. When you nest a function inside of a function inside of a function, in some absolutely painful way to actually read and rationalize about when you read it. There's a command line works in the exact same way. It just is syntactically different and frankly easier to read. So when you show admins that, you always see light bulbs turn on. It's like, oh, actually, that's what that is. So yeah,
It's
big fan
no.
of using the command line.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I like that session, and yeah, big fan of people understanding. I think if you spent a while working with Linux at any point, like, then you got very used to, like, oh, I need to do these 10 different steps, but pipe them all into one big line, and then I'll actually
Right.
get something amazing work, rather than it being like, I got to do A, then I've got to do B, then I've got to do C, and so on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, and it's
before
interesting.
we
Just I
go
mean,
on,
I just want to, a lot of the command line work that you see people do is around Z shell, Bash, the Unix, Linux versions of that. And so I think a lot of people who use Windows regularly tend to rule themselves out of working with CLI, and honestly, PowerShell, which is the kind of first class command line in the Windows world these days, is super powerful. And in fact, one of the later sessions I basically did the same talk, but just focused on showing how to do the exact same things using Windows. And Yeah. So if anyone's out there, obviously this isn't supposed to be the purpose of this live stream, but
No, no.
if you want to like pick up the command line and you're afraid of it, just really start digging and like reading. You'll find some amazing things you can do. So there you go. Enough said.
No, it's a cool topic. One that we might have to add into our list of things, ever growing list of things to cover. So
There we go. Yeah. Once we write a trigger, maybe we can do some command line stuff.
yeah,
So
trigger and then just jump straight to command line work. Yeah.
there we go.
I mean,
Just
it
jump
was
right in.
yeah. Well, so probably worth us just spending a couple of minutes talking about the. So we mentioned at the start of this, and thank you everyone for dialing in, about kind of the genesis of this idea being a couple of conversations you and I have had over the past few months, at different events and, and after the events. But the idea behind these sessions is really for us to allow a way of live programming, of sharing what we're doing and how we're doing it, but more importantly, why. Because I think that's the hardest thing. I know when I was writing my books, the biggest thing I worked on was, and yeah, people can feel free to make the comments of, I've read your book, of course I can tell you focused on this rather than the code. But I focused far more on like the narrative of what you were doing, of what kind of the reader was doing, rather than necessarily the specific code portions. Like once you've learned a language to an extent, like you're pretty much good to go. It's more the hows and more the why of what you're doing. And that's really kind of the idea behind some of these, or behind these sessions, is we want to cover topics over a few sessions. So, Peter and I have no idea how far we're going to get in our trigger idea today. If we keep on talking about bash shells and just other things, we'll probably, maybe open up VS Code. Who knows? But we want to sit there so that there's two of us and that we can ask each other the relevant questions. We can get give each other the right answers and help each other along the way. And if you're I can see that we've got some people here on the screen who are very, very experienced developers, like Jay, who's just messaged. Good to see you, Jay. Jay's super experienced developer. Like he'll be correcting our code as we go through.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to need it. But like, Peter and I have been doing this for a while, but I spend half my life like digging through the Apex developer guide. And go, wait, what's that function again? Is it string dot? What? Yeah. And so, helping people see, I think, what a real life kind of implementation's like. So that's kind of my ideas on it. I don't know what yours are, Pete.
Yeah, well, and for my part, I one of the things I joked about with you when we were kind of tossing this idea around is, yeah, a lot of the code that I've written has been for a demonstration and example. I have much more of that code out there than real live production code. And then toward the end of my time working at Salesforce before I left last year, I'd been managing for about 2 years and really hadn't written much code. And since then, I've picked up a bit, but even in the last year, because of my interests and the direction I've gone, even though I've written a lot of Apex over the years, 80% of the code I've been writing has actually been Python code, just because I'm doing a lot more work with data management and that sort of thing with some of the clients that I have in the dev relations business I'm running. I've written some Apex, but I was it was fun, but at the same time I was getting, that sort of I need to brush the cobwebs off feel to all of that. So, I think this is going to be a lot of fun for me doing this with somebody who has so much experience, like actually writing code that went out and, is now running on people's orgs in anger. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to just sort of brush the cobwebs off. I've always been a big fan of Apex, and I know that's not every developer feels that way about it, which is totally fine. But some of the features that it offers around the way that it's tightly coupled and opinionated, and just makes it so easy to interact with the database. I've always thought they were great to work with, especially as compared to some previous enterprise software packages that I've worked with. So I think it's going to be fun on all counts.
It is, yeah. And there's a few different sessions and ideas like that we've been knocking around. So this is going to be the first one. We very much appreciate feedback. Like, please, Peter and I are doing this for ourselves because we enjoy each other's company. Well, at least I enjoy Peter's company, and wanted to do some stuff together. But this is a free learning experience. If you're finding that something doesn't work, let us know in the comments, and we can tweak it. If you have questions as we're going, ask them. We both can see them coming through. And if you've got suggestions for like a topic you'd like to see covered in detail, let us know as well. We were thinking test data factories, mocking and stubbing, some integrations, Apex REST work, performance, tuning, caching, external libraries, identity, dependency injection, SSH keys, Heroku, loads of ideas. I think there was even like a random Roblox integration we knocked around at some point. I think, we've had a lot of conversations on this. So
that'll be like when we up level at some point. If
when we've got 1,000 people watching at once.
And time to go and learn Lua.
Hey, I tell you what, like I will publicly put now that if we ever achieve 1,000 people watching concurrently live, that we will go away and like do something like a Roblox integration or a community driven one where someone gives us a suggestion and we go away and do that, and it will be zany and off the wall. And if it means I have to learn Rust or Lua, then I have to do that.
Sign me up for it.
Super. So with that, let's actually get started on what we're doing today. So the idea is we're going to build some trigger stuff. So we're going to work with a very sort of simple yet fairly common, I think, example of something I've seen a few times in different places. We're going to build it out and test it. We're going to live code together on it. We're going to take turns kind of driving for those who have pair programmed before. I forget the correct terminology. Is it a driver and a navigator? I think are the correct terms.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go with driver and navigator. Like we'll just do that. So one of us will be driving and actually doing the coding. The other one's going to be sort of navigating along, giving suggestions, helping correct typos, and also kind of explaining what we're doing and kind of prompting questions as we go. We're going to refactor things, and we want to show you really how we go from a sort of trigger build that might just be your kind of starting trigger build through to building out a trigger framework. And one of the reasons around this is, I'd love to say that every org I go in, I've been into thousands of orgs. I'd love to say that every single one has a trigger handler framework, but very rarely do I actually go into a brand new org and there be one. It's not as ubiquitous as we might think. And so there is a good conversation here as to when you want to implement one, when it's the right time to do it, how you work to refactor other stuff there.
And that's one of the exact things that you and I chatted about, and I think we ended up agreeing on. Should every org have a trigger framework? Like, should they implement their triggers with the trigger framework? But just because I've definitely had it put to me by some people that absolutely, it doesn't matter how small it is or how small the problem, start with a trigger framework and you'll be setting yourself up for success forever in the future. So what are your thoughts about that?
No problems ever. I mean, I will always implement a trigger framework if there isn't one. And the reason I do so is because I'm a staunch kind of just staunch person that doesn't take anyone else's views into opinion. But no, I like the reason being is that I think that even if there isn't one there, it's a chance for me to improve the code base and effectively prepare to pay off some debt. It makes it easy for me to add new stuff in a controlled way. And it gives me a way of kind of going in and starting to control the refactoring process for existing things, is my view. There is also, I think, a concept of this, which is around having the time and luxury to do it. I used to run a consulting company, and I'd like to say I was an absolutely brilliant boss and was not, kind of a slave driver. But there are apparently some of those people out there. And I know that for some developers, that it's hard, and for admins as well, and consultants, it's hard when you're going into an environment and someone says you've got 3 hours to build this, and you're like, well, I don't actually have the time to add in other things. Now, we can talk until the proverbial cows come home about, like, should you be doing it anyway, and should you be spending that extra half an hour or 20 minutes doing it? But like, sometimes if the code is where it is, you need to just go in and make the changes and get out. So I think that there's a pragmatism that people need to understand as well, and it's real life is not in a book, is the honest answer there.
Yeah.
Best practices are what we try and strive for and what we want to move towards, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do them straight out of the bat. There's a learning process and an adaptation process there.
And this is part of the reason why, it can take, like, there are still orgs out there that have like Visualforce pages, or probably even S controls today. If you have something that works, right? And it still works, are you going to expend, precious resources unworking, making that thing not work so you can make something else work just because it's a new technology? No, definitely not. And then if you talk about, a consulting company and like their trained resources and what they know, like, why did it take so long for companies to, or for consultancies to move off of building new Aura or even new Visualforce? Well, if their resources, if who the people are that were writing the code knew Aura or Visualforce, and the request or the requirement was, some kind of custom user interface, like, you aren't given the time to go and learn the new framework, which you might not be, because that's just less money you can be billed for, right? Then, new Aura page, new Visualforce pages, they get written. It just happens. It's, it's one of the compromises that happens.
Well, there's limitations still as well. Like, I yesterday wrote an Aura component, right? And the reason I wrote an Aura component is because it is 2024, and if anyone from Salesforce is wanting to listen to my little, like, on a soapbox rant right now, there will be a number of these throughout the sessions.
Hello, is Salesforce listening?
Listen, I know Parker Harris is dialed in, and like, top of his list is like, what do Paul and Pete want for the releases? I can't put a Lightning Web Component as, like, I can't have it as a custom tab. Like, I have to embed it in an Aura component and have the Aura component on the custom tab. And that grinds my gears so much, because I've just got all these half-empty, useless Aura components around. But there's a perfect example, like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Callable. Well, there we go. Nice. So lovely philosophical conversation. Should we move on to doing some code?
Yeah, we should actually do some things. So,
all right, let's do that.
Let me share my screen and let's talk through the requirement here. Share screen. Cool. All right. And I have do not disturb turned on, so hopefully no one gets a notification or sees, someone messaging me on Slack or something like that. Right. So hopefully everyone can see the wonderful requirements document we have in front of us. This is probably better than what you get from a lot of product managers and product owners. So, we're moving ahead of the game already. Definitely had customers that have given me less detailed requirements than this. So, so the requirement we're going to work with is, as a user, I'd like to see the total number of open tasks against an account, so that I can identify those accounts that need a greater amount of focus from the team. And this is actually a pretty common sales use case, because you want to have, it might be account, it might be opportunity, it might be contact, it might be whatever you want, but we're going to work with account because it's a easy top level object. Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of the default, like, I need to build something and show how it works. Yeah, account.
Yeah, accounts, like, and it's a good, honest thing. I was sat there last night thinking about, the testing, and I was about to create this on a contact, and I was like, no, because then I've got to create account records with all the contact records in the test, and that's just extra lines of work. And
there you go. Yeah,
naming things is hard, so I'm not coming up with, like, names for test accounts. So the acceptance criteria we've got are when a new open task is added to the account, number of open tasks should increase by 1. Fairly obvious. when a task is updated to be closed, the number of tasks should decrease. And then when a task is deleted, it should also decrease. I'm going to assume that there's no undelete in our world.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that, like if we should add that requirement.
So this is again personal experience. I have found that people tend to not undelete tasks. Other objects, yes, but like tasks are used for all sorts of awful, terrible things that they shouldn't be. There was one org that I worked in where, as an aside story, where they had like this was before platform events. They had like a custom message queue integration, and anytime there was an error, the place the error got logged was the task object. Rather than like a custom API error log object where you could put stuff in there and have notification, it got logged as a task, and the task was assigned to one of the developers on the team, like to just a development team. And it was just like, I mean, it was atrocious and kind of, one of those things that when I spoke to the architect who was there before me, he was like, "Don't ask." Bad decisions were made. We didn't have the say on them.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and that actually, I could even see that, like, tasks not even being something that are deleted very often. Just the life cycle of a task is you just sort of tick it off and it's done, and then you forget about it, don't you? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I've only put delete in here because, I mean, it's so.
Yeah. No, I mean,
smoke and mirrors for us to kind of do the different options here, but I think,
yeah,
and we can add in undelete later. I mean, I know the guy who wrote the requirements; he's very flexible on them. So like, it's easy enough.
It's a good business partner to have, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's perfect. Like he's really easy to work with. A good question that people might ask though is, why don't we use? Well, so first of all, a couple of questions. Why don't we use a roll-up summary? And the answer there is because it's a task, and we can't then do roll-up summaries on them. The other question, so we can't add a master detail from a task to an account, is the honest answer. Could Paul increase font size on VS Code? There we go. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and keep it about that size. It's incremented by a couple. It's just so it doesn't swamp my screen so I can't put any code. But hopefully that's a bit better for you, John, and good afternoon to you. So where was I going? One thing people might ask is why we aren't using something like roll-up, lookup summary, or DLRS, or any of these things. Now, there's a couple of reasons, I think. Number one is obviously this is us going through an example talking about how we're going to build something out. So, there's that answer. The other one is that I find those tools can be slightly heavy for an org, is my honest approach. And I think if you're doing one or two roll-up summaries, then perhaps just working with a with a trigger or something like that works better. I think if you're planning on doing many of them, and you'll know as you're going into this whether you've got a few or not, then I think something like DLRS can help. But you've got to be very careful with kind of like the scaling of that and how that works. It can cause problems because it's not meant to happen. Which is also my favorite, as a little tangent, it's my favorite question to ask in an architect job interview or senior developer job interview is why would you never be able to have a roll-up summary on a lookup relationship? Why would it not work? Go on then, Pete. Why would it not work? This is putting you on the spot for
well, so I mean, going back a lot of years from the last time I looked at this, at one point in time, you had to have a master detail relationship for a roll-up summary field.
You still do. So okay, it's what. So the question was badly worded. The question is what I ask is more if you if Mark and Parker, let's just say, because they obviously come up with every individual requirement. If they decided to add to tomorrow, just add a little checkbox that enabled roll-up summaries on lookups, why would it not work?
Oh, that's a good question.
We can come back to it. Like there can be a little teaser until like the end of the section.
I'll think about that. Let me give me some time to
noodle it.
Yeah, Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So, so that's our requirements. What we're going to do is we're going to go away and we're going to build some of these things out. I'm just going to go in and, as a starter, create an account. Oh, we've probably got some in here because it's a dev org that was freshly spun up yesterday. Let's use S-Force, which is everyone's favorite. And if we create a new task against S-Force, you can see it's related to S-Force. Please go away. And this is a test. I'm just going to save it. And there's a field here, which is probably awfully put somewhere, number of open tasks that we want to increment. So that should be 1. Okay. It's not, and so we need to fix it. The other thing I'm just going to do quickly, just to kind of look in the background, is if you're not a user of the Salesforce Inspector Reloaded, you should be, because it's an awesome bit of kit. But it's just to show people what the relationship looks like between the task and where it's going. So we have the account ID here. Now, one of the things that we spoke about a minute ago was perhaps using contacts or leads instead. If we did a contact or a lead, we'd be using the who ID field, whereas with an account, we can just use the account ID field, as you can see there, because it's a bit more of a hard reference. If we were using the who ID field or the what ID field, we would have to do something to check to see whether it is actually account or whether it's a contact or a lead it's related to. So that's a polymorphic field. For those who aren't familiar with polymorphic fields, they're a very special field type that means they can look up to different types of object. And it's not something you can create. It's one of those things that Salesforce guard very closely and look after themselves. So, all make sense?
Yeah. I love those polymorphic fields.
I do. They are very, very handy. But we're going to be boring and just use the account ID field. Because
sounds good. All right.
Cool. So now the first question is to ask Peter, as we're about to get started, is how would you go about starting off with this? Because I would start this in a particular way, but this is the first time Peter and I have ever coded together, and I'm not as completely evil as I come across. I'm keen to figure out how Peter would start, and I'll tell you how I would kick this off. Is my first thing I would do is I would create the test class and start writing some of these as tests.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably a better way to do it than I would do. I would be very supportive of that. Probably the first thing I would start with would not even be the trigger. I would probably start with like a static method of a class that began to do some of the work that would be involved in this, to be honest. So yeah.
Okay, so how do you think how should we proceed?
I like the idea of starting with TDD, and frankly, part of the reason I never did test-driven development, when you're writing something for the purposes of a blog post or a video or a training module, unless you're teaching the testing part, oftentimes you don't write the test. So
no, very true.
Now, that being said, I will say that for sure the Salesforce developer relations team and their sample apps, they do a very good job of ensuring that every bit of code is tested. So I don't want to say that that's necessarily always the case.
No.
And frankly, tested code is always better code, even if it's sample code.
No, sounds good. Okay, so let's do that then. So we're going to call this task trigger test. I think works. We're not going to call it task trigger handler test or trigger anything test because we don't have a handler yet. And we can always rename or rework things as we need later. All right. Voila. We have some code. Look at us. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark it as a test class and make it private because we don't want people seeing our test code. A lot of people don't do the private thing, It's surprising how, which is, it really makes very little difference because most I mean, you can call a test class method. It's not really going to do anything from outside, but it's as a practice, it's a good idea to do so. Now for the code here, and I'm just adding loads of blank lines while I'm thinking because that's my nervous habit. There's a few conversations we could have about setting up test data and how we do it in the most effective manner. And do we mock or do we stub or do we all these things? I'm going to suggest here, because we're creating an account and some tasks, which are really kind of empty, lightweight objects, and there's not going to be too much running. And we know it's an empty org for now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say we create the data using DML and run it, as that's
Sure.
how I prefer to do it. We
Mhm.
could look at mocking and stubbing in the future with other things, and I don't think we need a test factory or anything yet. We're just going to go kind of real basics. So
Yeah, I think that, on the side of getting to the point of the exercise, I
yeah,
think that makes sense.
so test insert single task. Cool. So in this test, what we expect to happen is we're going to have an account. And then we're going to set the name to be test account. And then I'm going to insert the account. And then after that, we're going to have a task. Oops. TSK dot related to ID, I think it was. This is where we will be jumping. Oh, no, just account ID. Of course, there you go. First mistake within 30 seconds. Equals act.id. We're going to have the tasks subject. Test task. And then I'm just going to make sure that we have the status, which is down here on the status field. We'll just have it as not started because that works for us. Whoops. Copying HTML, always a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So we've inserted our task, and then this is where our actual code we're testing is running. So I will always do, I'll start the test and then stop the test. That's probably the better way of doing it rather than stopping it and then starting it. Cool. And then we need to retrieve our account again. Number of open tasks. So one of the things that I often have running is Copilot, and I've turned it off for this, just in case anyone's wondering, about the use of AI tools. You can see it's down there and it's turned off, and I haven't enabled Einstein for developers. Is because I find when I'm coding live and sharing with the screen, it's too much noise for people. It's just too much stuff on there.
I frankly like the auto suggestion. I find it really distracting anyway.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not showing somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. So we expect one. Our actual is going to be and we're going to output the message incorrect. Cool. Right.
So this goes to show like how old my Apex skills are, that I've actually not used myself the new system.assert methods in any tests that I've written. Like that's how long ago I wrote Apex tests.
That is a while. Where's the extra semicolon that it's whinging about? Extra semicolon test account. 1 minute.
Oh, equals. There you go.
Always a good start. An account ID is not writable, so I bet you it is that related to field that we need to set. Or what ID? What ID? That'll be it. Cool. That's useful for us to know in a minute.
So looking at the live share, I was seeing the squiggles, but I hadn't seen the pop-ups. But actually, they do come through, which is kind of cool.
Oh, cool. So again, we should probably just let people know if they're ever interested in working together collaboratively what the live share is. This is a plug. Is it VS Code live share? I think it's called, or something like that.
Yeah, it's just it's a Microsoft plugin for VS Code. So like I can actually. Oh no, there we go.
Look, no hands.
Yeah. So yeah, so I'm in there. I just haven't done anything yet.
If Peter presses save as well, it will deploy it, I think. So if you press save.
Oh really?
Yeah, if
you have it auto deployed.
Yeah, I always have auto deploy on because I'm that kind of excitable bear. Like, yeah, get it up there, get it going. Right. So yeah, that's cool. So if while I am coding any of it breaks, I will blame Peter for obviously typing something in and breaking it.
It's my fault.
So let's run our test. Do we think we're going to get a pass? Oh, what? It failed. No.
Oh no.
And it failed with incorrect number of open tasks. Oh, there we go. So unsurprisingly, we got a fail. If anyone on the watching along is surprised, we haven't written the trigger yet, so no need to be.
It's a little
so
detailed.
We got our test.
Sorry, I just want to ask though, like, so I would find it like disconcerting to not be able to have my code deployed like this, And granted, that's what test-driven development is supposed to be, right? It's your tests fail until you've written the code. But yeah, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that? That doesn't bother you, huh?
Like, well, it's if it's in a developer environment, it doesn't matter. Like, I can put whatever in there. I for certain, it really depends on what I'm building. Like, I will not. Okay. I will hands up say I'm not always a TDD kind of purist. If I'm doing something like this where there's a very clear and obvious TDD path, then I will do. So we've already created that field number of open tasks on the account. We've added it on there. It's really obvious for us to see what the TDD steps are. I don't think anyone's going to suggest that this is a mind-blowing algorithm we're going to be writing.
Yeah, sure.
If I was doing something where I was working on a more complex piece of work where like I had to think through different steps, I would often do a step and then write the test and then do it like that.
Okay.
But I try and avoid like doing the entire problem and then doing the testing, because what I then find is, oh, I've forgotten all these other little edge cases and I end up spending so much extra time.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's personal preference, as I say. So, right. So we've done that. So why don't you go ahead, Pete, and let's start building the trigger. I've done my bit. I've created the test. Let's see if we can get it to pass.
All right. Oh, that's interesting.
If it's not obvious, Pete and I have not used live share together before. So
on my side, when I use the
command palette,
it's not giving me any of the SFDX.
Right. Would you like me to?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and kick off the trigger?
Cool. We'll call it task.
Create it.
There you
go. All right.
Voila.
So we definitely are going to want to have more of these guys here.
All the contexts.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's a shortcut I've used to just get them all in there before than just like typing them all out.
It is like, this is one of those things that I'm afraid it's a type. I always think it's just to type it all out. This is I mean, I would do what Peter's doing here, but like if anyone is a TDD purist and is watching along or in the comments, then they will just be like, you should only add in the one context you're using just to get the test to pass. Like, I get that. We're tweaking the rules a little bit here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like if you're gonna write them all in anyway, I mean, even sure, like we don't implement the logic, but
yeah,
like, yeah, I would probably always do this. Anyway,
we probably I think we need it to be on the object as well at the top.
Thank you. Oof, yeah. So that's account. Anything else that I forgot?
Task.
Oh, thank you. God. And my habit is to save like every time I make a change. So we might be running into me deploying a lot.
It's fine. There's no one else in my house today. Like I can just, we can use up the bandwidth all we want, like deploying up to the developer role.
Nice. Okay. So the first thing we have is that we want to make sure that anytime there is a new account, we get the new task. Okay.
So anytime there's a new task, we add it onto the account.
Yeah. So now the funny thing is, so this is one of those times when, like, the way that I would do this if I was just stuffing it into the trigger logic, which we appear to be doing right now just for fun.
Just slamming it in there. Well, but like this is it. I mean, it's a real life example where there is no other framework. So let's build out what we want and then we can refactor later.
Let's do it. So I would actually go and look up a blog post of mine for when they launched the Apex switch statement. Because literally I take the code that I wrote there and like that's typically how I start out. But
maybe we just do, let's for now. Well, I mean, I can go away and find like that code basically in a bunch of places. Or do we want to just let's just do an if statement and we can refactor to a switch one later when we've got more.
Okay, that's fine. We could do that. So if I do,
I'll be honest and I say I don't use your blog post, but I copy. I mean, I always whack in the same trigger framework from like Kevin O'Hara, so I just do the same thing all the time.
So if is okay. So this is coming. We want to create it on the account record that must exist. So we have to make sure we're doing it after.
Remember, it's the task we're running off of, not the account. It is still after, but yeah, it's because it's a related record.
Right. So okay. Right, because so I keep thinking about like automatically creating a task. So I need to like reset my.
It's the other way around. The task
So it's not that like we're creating a task automatically. It's when we create a task, we want to update account. So yeah. But thinking that through, so is after and trigger dot is insert. Now typically we'd want to not just so trigger dot do we want to use trigger dot new? Yeah, trigger dot new. But we want to do for task. I like your shortening of that. New, and then
a really good LinkedIn post by Pablo Gonzalez. Have I got?
Yeah, Pablo.
Yeah. The other day, I don't know why I struggle with his surname then. But about like naming things and like it's very like it's one of the hardest problems in computer science is coming up with a name for something. But like there's so many oddities and little things to try and figure out there. I've got a problem in one of my products at the moment where one of the fields I need is to be called currency in like a JavaScript object, and because of that I can't use like Apex serialization everywhere because currency is a reserved keyword.
Right. So do you do like current C like that?
Yeah, that's what I'll do. Yeah, is I'll just do currency. I think that's the internationally
Because
recognized.
everybody loves the fruit currents, don't they? I mean, I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
They're directly
so
playing.
all right. So I'm looping over my tasks, and what I need to do is um, I need to collect the accounts for
Yeah.
those tasks. So, and I could have a list of accounts in several different bits of logic. So I'm going to put it out here. Accounts equals new list. And actually, I'm going to call this accounts to update, just to be a bit more specific, like which accounts they are. And something didn't like something about that.
No, that's good.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Apex PMD and Robert Sosman, for reminding me I shouldn't put logic in triggers.
Yes,
And
we know.
I will now, in spite of that, put some logic in a trigger.
This is a process like Apex PMD. Give us a moment.
So it's really interesting. Like, so in my live share, when I put my mouse cursor over the squiggles, I see it, but it doesn't show up on your screen, which I guess
No.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. There we go. So just to have some.
Yeah, sorry for
Okay.
anyone who is looking there. So Apex PMD is a great plugin. It allows you to have. It gives a load of little rules for you. If you use it, if you're working on an ISV app, like it's a must-have. I think it's a must-have in general, but like
it's fair to say, just as Josh Burke is the godfather of Trailhead, Robert Zosman is the godfather of static code analysis in the world of Salesforce. So
yeah, that's very, very fair. And they're both extremely nice guys as well, which helps.
They really are two of the most lovely people you meet in the ecosystem. All right. So I've got some accounts that I'm going to be populating with my task. Now here's the thing. So if I'm in trigger.new for this task, is there anything I'm going to need from this task that I need to go back to the database for? I don't think so. So I think I should just be able to, owing to the fact that there is a task. Oh, but I do need to make sure it's a task that has an account ID, don't I?
So yeah, I think so. I think what we would need to do is from here go through and say, is this task open? Because if it's closed, then we don't care. And does it have an account ID in the what ID?
Okay, that's good.
And then if so, then we need to grab that account. And then I think we then get into an interesting thing of thinking around, okay, how do we increment or decrement? That's a later down the code problem, but I think for
and
now.
Then there aren't any other, like I haven't worked with the task object a ton. There aren't any other sort of qualifying criteria and task that would mean like we can just ignore this task in this instance.
Not for this example. Some people you might have like other things of like task type or things like that, but we're simplistic and just saying it's open tasks of any sort.
Okay. So if tsk dot status, I remember seeing that was, I believe, one of them. The name of the field. Is that the name of the field?
That is the name of the field. Yeah. If we in the test, you can see it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. If that is equal to, and I would say we probably want to just check that it's not equal to closed, which I think is the correct. I'll just jump over for you and verify that in the background. Come on, there we go.
So I was
not
lazy.
Started, in progress, completed is the word that we don't want.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So if task.status is not equal to completed. And here we go. I have to think through logic because my brain is just slow that way. So it needs to both be not complete and an account. So I think we want and tsk dot what ID. So this is interesting. We want to make sure it's an account. Is there there isn't a field that says this is the entity type that this is associated with in task?
No. So,
Interesting.
like, there's a few ways around this. Like, we
I mean, you can look for the 001 in the
that
ID.
that's pretty much what I would do.
Yeah, I mean,
Here,
it
like,
should be pretty unbreakable for a standard object. For a custom object, you could be getting yourself into trouble.
yeah, for a custom object, what you can do is on the object itself, there is. So I think if we were to do account dot get s object type dot get describe dot I think dot key prefix, it actually gives you
Right.
that 001. So if we wanted to make this super robust, we can use that.
Mhm.
And like that might be something, oops, that might be something we kind of stick up here.
Oh, I see. Yeah, get the key prefix off of that. Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, yeah, this is we because that's one way of doing it, and then you could do well. So remember, it's only the key prefix. So it's only the first 3 digits, so it's not going to be equal, is it?
Thank you. Yeah. So I need to look up string methods.
Let me. I'm going to do that on the stream for people as well, because obviously they cannot see your screen.
Yeah, my screen isn't shared.
I think we want to do like it's probably string dot substring 04 to get the first 3 characters. I think it is, or 0302.
Substring. Yeah. Okay. Yep, that sounds right. I think the second one is
Yeah, so if we did 0 index -1, so 0.
I think
3.
04 will include 4 characters.
Yeah,
actually.
so 03.
03. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
string dot substring 03 will get us.
And that is a static method of string, or is it a class
Yeah,
method of
string
the
methods
string?
are always static. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Or
I'm
90%
looking up. So Perplexity AI gave me a bunch of lists of the methods, and its example seems to make substring as a instance method
Oh no,
of the
you're right.
string.
It is an instance method.
And so what ID is going to be an ID data type. So
Yeah.
I need to do is it
String
string
dot value of.
dot value of tsk what ID dot sub string.
Oh, we've also had a suggestion of string dot left 3.
Oh,
Is there? I didn't know there was a left method.
is there? That's cool. Well, I'm going to forge ahead with my substring, but thank you for sharing that. Who was that? Who?
John Daniel.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. So string dot value of tsk dot what ID dot substring from the 0th to the 3rd exclusive.
Yep, that should
Equals
work.
key prefix. And do I have the right number of opening? Yeah, it looks like my parentheses are okay as well. Boom. So if that, then let me think this through again. Then we need to so we are going to need to take my account. So this is one of those ones where because it's an insert, well, no, I can't just do that. This isn't one of those ones where I can just sort of create an account with an ID and then make a change. I need to know the previous state of the account.
Yeah, we need to retrieve the account because if we did the instance creation, we could set the number of open tasks. We don't know what it was before.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll probably need to retrieve all the what IDs in a set so that we avoid.
Yeah, that was exactly kind of where I was going. So, okay, so I'm not sure I'm going to actually, well, we'll see. The accounts to update will probably eventually come, but so I'll leave that there for now. So set ID.
So in the comments, John's just while you're creating your ID set,
Yeah.
RE line what is now 12, I think. Usage of double equals versus string dot equals. What are my thoughts here? Why are we using double equals versus string dot equals? So string dot equals has a method where you can say string dot equals and then blah blah blah. I mean, I don't think there's a great reason for one or the other. I am so used to writing things in double equals or bang equals or all of these in the way using kind of mathematical notation that I stick with that, and that's just my kind of way. I don't think there's a better or worse way. I think so. I think if we were to look at it from a completely purist perspective, then probably doing dot equals and then the key prefix would probably be better from a really pure like code perspective.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of one of those. For me, it's one of those ones that it depends on what you're doing. I mean, because what we could do here as an option, I'm not going to say we're going to do this, but we could have. Well, we can't actually do this now. We could somewhere extract the extract this method. So if we and forgive me a second, Peter, I'll just mess around.
No, go for it. Yeah, by all means.
If we made it like, I'm just going to comment it so that it's easier and doesn't break everything. If we changed it to this, then I would suggest personally we would then extract that to a method somewhere that would then give us, I don't know, like is ID of object type, and this is a terribly written way of doing it, so we come up with a better name, but you'd probably pass in like the ID value or string value, and then s object for typing, and then you might go down it like that way. And then you'd have a method where you would effectively every time retrieve the key prefix or retrieve the what ID. Because I think that I think one of the, but for me, this is where kind of like you can get too abstracted. Like we're in a trigger. We're only using this account key in this trigger at the moment. If I found there was 3 or 4 other trigger places or code places that I might be using it, then I go back and do it. But yeah, so I mean, the short answer to your question, John, and again, appreciate your thoughts because I know you're a super experienced dev as well, is like I personally do this just because I have a maths background and I've written more stuff using this in other languages than anything else. So it just flows naturally to me. I think if I went down this one, I'd then start feeling my way through abstractions in other areas. But I don't know what your thoughts are, Pete.
Yeah, well, I would say like in the era of when I was writing a lot of Apex code, I absolutely would have used the dot equals method. I honestly just forgot about it. There you go. So you don't use a skill.
Answer than my like diatribe about like going into a deep OO setup. But yeah.
Well, so the thing I do remember having some knowledge of at some point, many years ago was, I thought if you used like the double equals, the comparison was slightly different than with the dot equals. But I might be confusing that with something else as well. Like the one would be case sensitive, the other one was case insensitive or something like that. But I was actually just going to the Apex developer guide or the Apex reference to look at that and see if there was sort of a difference between doing a equals comparison and the double equals comparison operator for a string versus the dot equals
It's
method.
There is a difference. I've just found Stack Exchange. It is case sensitivity. Um, so if you use equals, dot equals, as it were,
Mhm.
then it returns true if the passed in object is not null and represents the same binary sequence of characters as the current string.
So that would be case sensitive.
Yeah, case sensitive. If you use double equals, it's the same as you doing dot equals ignore case, where it doesn't matter on that. Um, someone
So
also
I would
said, so just to wrap up, someone has also said that double equals is also more null safe, which was Adrian
mm,
Larson who wrote that. So Adrian is a very, very
yeah.
smart developer. There's there's loads of stuff on this, like SFDC Fox. There's loads of people. So I'll post this in the chat for all of those that want to go
Yeah,
away
that's
and have
great.
a dive into it.
So I'm gonna say dot equals based on that, frankly,
Yeah, that works.
just because that just in case somebody were to somehow mess around with a key prefix or something like that on, granted, this is a count. It's always going to be 001 for every org. But,
Yeah.
in the case somebody's watching this and they're thinking like, oh, I can use that for like my custom object,
Yeah,
just to be a little, to, in a sense, like make it a bit more fragile in case somebody does mess around with it, wanting to make sure you get the right thing in the right place.
that makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, so we'll go with that. And then I guess, along those lines, and this is another thing I'm struggling a bit to remember. So like dot status, like is that treated as a string? If I just do dot equals, it seems to be on there. So I would probably
Yeah,
want to
no,
do
that
the same
will.
thing there.
Yeah, that
Uh,
would work.
and then of course make sure I go back and do uh, one of those. Yeah, do I have that right?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that's all right. Yeah, like that's it.
Uh,
If you do that. That's
cool. I could say just a side note. I'm a bit intimidated by this audience here, Paul. Like
I know it's like it's a
John,
very
Jay, like, I was like, I was figuring we get some maybe some beginners, and my my rusty Apex wouldn't feel
would
quite
be
so rusty.
yeah. I mean, but this it's also good. We've got people like John and Jay here, those who to help us learn. I mean,
There we go. That's a
this is
good
the
way of
best.
putting it. Yeah,
Yeah,
learning
we're
in
gonna come.
public.
Yeah, we're gonna come out this smarter than we were beforehand. Like, and so I mentioned Pablo's post the other day, like a couple of his posts, and like this is the sort of thing he so Jay said he's learning. That's also good, Jay. Thank you. So sort of thing he was talking about is like, having these things be a bit more kind of condensed. So you could, if we wanted to, even, and I'm not saying we should do this, like you could even say Boolean uh, is completed. Ooh, you could type it properly as well, and then you could do that.
Mm.
Key differences from ChatGPT. What do we got here? Uh, null safety. Okay. Okay. Well, we know that the. Oh, interesting. So yeah, we
So
want to.
so is that where we should use one of the null coalescing operators then? Hmm.
So we could do it like this. I'm again not safety. I'm not saying we would kind of substitute it down like that. And if we were doing this, I'd say like you want to find a way of putting in a method and blah 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 blah. But it's possibilities for us there. I think given what we've just said about like the null, the equal sign, I'd be tempted to say that this one. So status will have, I'm sure, has a default value. Does it not? Default value is not started. So we know that status won't be null because it's a pick list and will have a default value.
Yeah.
The what ID may be null. So I personally think that we'd be better off
Yeah.
just
Sounds
preparing
good.
for that.
Yeah.
There we go. We've all learned something from that.
Boy, did we ever.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the ID of a or maybe a few accounts that we're going to want to update.
Yeah.
We need to go get those accounts somewhere.
Yeah. The other thing I would wonder, just as a thought, is, and this might be actually, I'm going to shut up because this is me thinking too far ahead because I have written this. I've written this code before, so I'm going to shut up. Like, it's for those who don't, like, for those who haven't, and I think most of this audience are far too experienced for this book. But like, I run through a version of this in the kind of Learning Apex book, which I may have like scanned through this morning to be like refreshing my brain. So I'm going to shut up.
You may have run through this morning.
I genuinely was there, like, just scanning it, being like, "What's a trigger again?" Like, as it showed up here, I wrote a little test class and then thought I'll give the hard code to Pete to do. So.
Lovely. That's fine. I can take it. So then, thinking about this, do I want to put the creation or this account retrieval and creation inside my if log? Yeah, I probably do.
Yeah, we won't be creating. I think we'll just be retrieving, won't we?
Yeah. So, God, I have to remember how to write some DML. Okay, so list task.
Why are we doing? Sorry,
no, thank
Pete.
you.
But you've got the.
I already have that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. So accounts to update equals select.
I'm glad to say I'm not the only person that types select wrong every single time.
Select the ID and what's the name of the field? Thank you. Number of open tasks.
There you go.
Put that space in there. From account where, except I'm breaking my own rules. I do prefer.
I'm so glad you fixed that because there was a mode of.
It's funny, like the little things I can just get a little bit like, I don't know, piddly about. It's like, does it really matter? But I think from readability, it does make it nicer.
What's funny is like this one we definitely not change and leave, but like this. And that's because I wrote C#, I think, rather than Java.
Like taking the space out from the if.
Yeah, so you have if I see if as a function, and it's not. I know it's not. Nobody please sit there and tell me like it's not a function. I know it's not, but it feels like it. Like, and that's why
I can see that. I can see where you would maybe.
It's like, I don't like single line if statements. If someone if you just do a if this value like return, or if this value blah blah blah.
Oh,
do something
yeah.
That really
Well, that's so like this is one of the things that I've like, because I've really picked up Python mostly this year. I mean, I've played with it before, but I do find myself forever going back and forth as far as like all of the sort of C family language syntax that I've used over the years versus Python, and just sort of fumbling over myself and going back to writing one from the other and like missing punctuation or brackets or operators. And yeah, so, but it's fun, for my aging brain. I think it helps keep it a little bit fresh. So
there's a pragmatic engineers book, or pragmatic programmers book, which is 7 languages in 7 weeks.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one that I'd love to do.
Yeah.
So just again, just final interesting like personal syntactical thing. Loads of people do this. And I think this is the way that the Apex. What's the course that you and I both taught? Like 401, 501, whatever it was.
Yeah, Dev 501.
Yeah, like all of these. teach it that way. I always write it that way because I'm like, you are binding to this variable, so put the colon on the like. Again, personal preference.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's weird, like how little syntax things make you like you just used
triggered.
To like, yes, but there we go.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Woohoo!
Oh,
Inadvertent pun.
Yeah,
See, I'm so prone to do puns. I don't even think about it, and they come out of me. So
you can tell you've got 2 kids.
Yeah, dad jokes galore. Okay, so that should give me a list of accounts to update. And now I feel like I'm missing something. So, because eventually I need to. So this is my inserting. No matter what the value of number of open tasks is in an account, for every what ID that I have, assuming I can't have duplicate inserts in the same batch, right? So I just need to increment by 1, don't I?
You do for every task that's in there. We just need to increment by 1. So
yeah, so that would be for every task that's in there. That's a good point.
Because it's every open task for that account. So this is where I was going with my thought earlier that I stopped myself on.
Yeah, because so that's a good point. Like I still need all of the open tasks. I wonder if I should be batching up in my previous for loop. I should be batching up a list of tasks as well.
What you could do, if
or
you were so
mapping up.
inclined, is you could, I would be tempted to create a map of ID to integer, and then for every task for that account ID, increment it. Create a running count, and then it's easier to add that running count on.
Instead of just having a set up, create a map, and for every for every task that's open and has the right key prefix, count up the number of tasks that map to the same account ID. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Sorry, my internet went a bit funny for a second, but yeah, let's go for it. Let's see what happens.
Okay, map ID integer. I like that. It's not giving me lots of angry looking red squiggly lines. Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Terminate your line, Peter. Terminate your line.
Too busy writing Python again.
Yeah. Come on, indents. It's all about indents.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm gonna have to think this through. This type of thing. There was some operator that they've introduced recently that I was thinking like, oh, that would be super useful for this type of operation, maybe. I was trying to think of an operation it would work for. Anyway, so I'll just do it the clunky way, and maybe there will be a better, more optimized way of doing it. Okay, so now I'm just gonna comment this out. Does this work? No, I can't do. I'll just have to do that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Count map dot add. Set actually is what I want, isn't it? No, put. Oh, so rusty. Okay. And we're going to use TSK. So, and I'm probably going to do this iteratively. Okay. Because what I need to do is I need to check to see if I have the key first, I'll, before I go and add it. So I think this is where it is. I need to go and look up that operator. I'm not going to do it while we're sitting here online, but so if
Oh, do you mean the one that puts in? There's a yeah, I know what you mean now. Sorry, Apex. The one that will put it in if it's not already in there.
yeah, something like that. Okay, so I need to check to see. Totally, totally spacing on like the best way to do this. It's been so long. Um,
So I think you want
so,
to if countmap.get and then task.whatid is null, then we're probably going to want to then you want
oh,
to.
there we go. That makes sense. Okay. Is there an is null or no? Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately not. I'm just trying to.
Then we're going to. Yeah. Okay. All right. So then we'll do count map dot put. I think that's right. And else. Uh, no. What's the right?
Sorry, I was seeing if I could find that thing, but I couldn't. So
It's
if
fine.
it's
No, no, it's fine.
uh,
I still, yeah. Okay. So I'll do. Is there not one that just like updates the value of a key? I guess that's
no,
put.
you have to. I think you have to get it, as far as I'm aware. I'm just trying to see if I can find
That's what I was
find.
going to do, but I was going to do like so put and then tsk dot what ID and then set it to count map dot get tsk dot what ID. So count plus one. I mean, that was what I was thinking. Did I
Yeah,
do that right?
yeah, that looks good to me. That's what I'd do.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna write down look up new operator thingy because now I'm really curious what that operator was.
Yeah, I can't
Uh,
find anything in. I
no
can't
one in the
see
chat
anything.
is helping out either. Come
So
on,
yeah,
you chat people, help us out.
have we just dreamt something?
Maybe so. I feel like this is exactly the use case I had in mind for it's like, oh, that thing I just read about would be really, really handy, and it would require less faffing about with the if else stuff around using maps. But anyway.
Oh, sorry. I tell you what we could use here is just
Oh, thank you. There we go.
sorry. Don't know why I didn't think of that. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. That was that in and of itself just looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so that was just a bit of rubbish that isn't going to go anywhere. And now, okay, so I kind of thinking of two different ways of doing this bit here because what I've done is retrieved my accounts into accounts to update,
Hmm.
and then I could loop over that um, and mutate it. But I think a more clean way to do that, like where my mind's taking me is actually what I want to do is to create a kind of new list of accounts. Um, but I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on that? It's almost like sort of a more functional, like don't mutate the data in place, but rather create something new to work with, which is kind of like I think working in a lot more JavaScript and in some functional languages has made me prefer to do that. But I don't know, does that really matter in Apex? What are your thoughts?
Um, I can't say I've ever thought of doing that, and it's not like not as like a criticism. That's not me going like,
That's
"The
fine.
hell, Peter." That's genuinely me being like, "Oh yeah, I've just never thought of doing it in that way," because I suppose in my mind I'm retrieving those accounts to update those accounts, and then that's
Yeah.
me terribly linking things together too much in my head. Um,
And I've done that, eh, but like now because I've had exposure to other programming paradigms, but I think, like I shouldn't fall into the trap of just because they do it that way over there doesn't mean it's applicable in this way over there or that it would be any more efficient. In fact,
I think
maybe from an Apex standpoint, like creating yet another list that I'm not going to mutate is actually just taking up more space, in my precious guideline list, and I just want to avoid that.
yeah.
So
I mean that would be like my default reaction would be not to do it because of worrying about governor limits and all that jazz.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
because yeah, and I mean yeah, we're let's be clear here, we're like working with the tiniest objects with the tiniest amount of data, so realistically, it's going to
Right.
matter not at all. But like yeah, if you had a bigger number, oh look, you've put the 4 right next to the bracket now. You're falling in love with the uh, the
Oh, that's
suggestion.
funny.
Um, like yeah, but like
Yeah, so
um,
now I'm wondering like which way do I do it?
yeah, it's all just mind. It's just Jedi mind tricks I'm throwing on you now. Pete. I'll get you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
like
just threw that
so.
in for you, Paul, just because I love you. So
Thank you. Um, so yeah, I would loop over the accounts, mutate them, and then upsert
okay.
them.
All right.
Because I
So we'll
suppose
do
I
that.
think sorry, this is also just one of those things that I think is a sorry, update them, not upsert them. I don't know why I said upsert.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
this is one of those key things I think for for people to think about though is variable does not exist. That one. It should be the key set for this. Um,
Thank you. Where did I get
I,
IDs to update from? Oh, that was my
that was
old
the
set.
old, yeah, that was your
Oh, I
previous.
never went back and I never went back and did that. Okay.
Right. Um, yeah, what I was going to say is one of the things I think that people need to think about is what data they're retrieving here. So
Mhm.
I am an ardent kind of believer in. So isn't there like a new SOQL thing where you can get all fields? Um,
There was a get all fields
yeah,
option that was added. My understanding with that was it was really meant to be pointed at the use case of, like, and I've been doing this more recently, like doing some of the data work that I'm doing. You know, you get access to a table for the first time, and you just kind of want to know what's in it.
yeah,
And so you do select star from table, limit 10, and like boom, all of a sudden you can see like every single column in that table and just get a feel for what the data is in there. But, you know, maybe realistically, when you get down to actually using that data, oh, thanks, Jay. Fields all.
all.
Um, yeah, like maybe once you get out to like production or like using it in reality, maybe you just want the actual columns that you want as opposed to like, you know, 100 columns out of that table.
Yeah. That fields all thing scares the scares the hoo-ha out of me. It's because
Yeah.
I can just see developers because there are a lot of people out there that just want to try and get the quickest thing done. That will just call that to get all the fields without thinking that. So if you do that for every field you pull in, you are increasing the amount of heap size you've got and the amount of data being stored and the amount of data processed. Now, like, heap size is the biggest, most flexible of the governor limits. I think it's the one that people encounter least. But I don't know, I think it's like, why are you
But do
grabbing
you want to encounter it?
well, yeah, that's it. Like the heck you do it? Like, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, I'm very much like, don't get what you don't need. Keep it lean, keep it mean, keep it clean. Yeah.
I mean, my default query when I'm working with a new object is always just select ID comma name. It's
Yeah.
like every single object, apart from case, has a name field.
Mhm.
And so like you can always be assured, and it's always required. So you can always be assured of getting something back on
Yeah.
ID comma name because those fields will always have some data in them apart from case.
Yeah.
Which I feel like I always have to say. It's like they decided there would be one object that wouldn't have a name field. I mean, clearly it was before they probably standardized, like, okay, yeah, every object has name kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always find that funny.
No, I agree. Yeah, I don't. I can see that there is possibly a use case for it. It's a bit like test visible. Um, like test visible is one of those things that is no, sorry, not test visible. Sealed data is what I'm thinking of. Test visible is like
Oh, okay.
useful in a lot of places. Sealed data is one of those things that there are use cases for it. But like, if you find yourself in one of those use cases, you will really know about it, rather than like it being a thing that you should default to. So yeah,
Right.
it worries me. Not worries me. That just sounds daft, but yeah.
No, so yeah.
Yeah.
ACCT dot. Oh, it's not picking that. Oh, capital?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, no, it is capital. It just doesn't like you.
Oh, but I'm not getting the tooltip is all. Number of open. Thank you.
I was gonna ping it down for you if you wanted, but
That's okay. I'm almost done. So, all right. So I'll get the current task count and then we'll go to ACCT. Okay. This time I will copy paste because that's a lot of underscores. Equals. Okay, and now I need to do count map dot get acct dot id. So I go and get the current task count for whatever's on account. Oh, but I need to default that to 0. Thank you for that.
neat. Why do you need to default it to 0?
Well, because number of open tasks could be null.
Could be null. Yep, that's a good point.
So I want to make sure, but if current tasks count, because then I'm just going to pass null to null. Will Apex like automatically will it like help me out if I try and add an actual number to null? I don't think it will it? It's gonna.
This is where for those watching along at home, this is where I would do the following because
Oh yeah,
I
please do.
genuinely don't know the answer. So let me show you how I would mess around with this. Leave that page. So what I'm going to do, so we agree that on this example record here, it is null. And if we go into the data in the background, it is number. That's the task. So that's really not going to help us. But this is why I love this. reloaded inspector. It's just so useful. But if we go down to number of open tasks, we can see here it is blank. Okay, which is in there for us. So what I would do is go here.
Oh, this is where we can use it's the null coalescing operator.
We could use the null coalescing operator, but I would, before even doing that, do the following because I'm
okay. Let's sorry, I was like, oh, I think this is what that operator I was trying to discover was for. Okay.
So ID number of open tasks. Oops.
You know, you could have copy pasted that.
I could have, yeah, but I'm old school. There was a chap I worked with once who not number of open tasks who only typed with 2 fingers, and did never copied and pasted. Like if he was writing an if but he had the smallest amount of errors in his code because
really,
because he was just not extraneous. So this is effectively what we're testing, isn't it? Like because if this is null, and I'm just gonna because I don't trust anything in the world. Bingo. All right. So if I then run that, no, it's execute, isn't it? Bang. Let's see what it does. Debug. Yeah. Attempt to dereference a null object. There you go.
Okay.
So yeah, this would be. I think it's a good. So I think doing that though. I wonder. Let me just try one other thing. Sorry, just out of interest is. What happens if we do plus equals 1? Yep, still the null object dereference. So
okay.
So yeah, so
but
you might want to do.
If I do ACCT dot number of tasks underscore C null coalescing operator 0, then no matter what, current task count will be 0 by the time I get to line 29, and then I should be in good shape.
Is that the null coalescing operator?
I believe so. I didn't go back and double check the references that perplexity.ai gave me, but
no, yeah, it is.
That's what the example, and that's what I seemed to remember is what I'll say.
No, it's correct. I've only ever really used it in like the dot, like the null coalescing method kind of view rather than.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you've got a method and you dot question mark or question mark dot, whichever way around it is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. So then for every account that I go through, I will have found its current number of open tasks and taken that number, or 0 if it was null, and added the amount that I had collected in my account map.
Yep, looks good.
I think I'm in good shape. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, in that case, then
should we test?
Have we saved it?
Probably not. I've been diligently not saving so that we don't do like a. There we go. So now it's saved.
Illegal assignment from decimal to integer.
Oh. Thank you.
Which is a real pain because I know it's a 0. I know it's like I think I made it a 3-0 field.
Well, so what happens when you do integer dot value of on a null value?
Well, let's find out.
I think we're going to find out.
Well, do you want to? Should we have a look in here again?
Yeah, sure.
So.
Because then, would you just put the null coalescing operator and the 0 inside the right parentheses?
Possibly. Yeah, no, it comes back as null still.
Okay, so
So we
it's
still need
just a
to.
null integer instead of, so either way, so it does handle the null. It won't do
Yeah,
a null pointer exception,
and that
which makes
makes sense
sense.
because integer's a
That makes
class,
sense.
isn't it? So
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
null class instance of a null should be null.
All right. But it didn't deploy, did it? Or will it?
I fixed it. You had there was the T missing on account,
Oh, thank you.
so it should be okay. We'll give it another quick save. Doesn't hurt. There we go. Right, shall we run? See what we've got. Finished, and it ran successfully. Yeah,
Damn. I can write code.
look at that. 93% code coverage as well.
It's pretty awesome.
So it's interesting that so a couple of things for people playing along at home. Why have we got 93% code coverage rather than 100 is because that wasn't what we wanted. We go
Well, because
here
we're testing an account with a. Did you want
with
me to
no.
answer, or were you hoping somebody would write it?
No, we weren't
Yeah,
hoping
so
anyone we weren't hoping
we have
anyone was
some
going to write it.
logic, right? That
Yeah.
says, like, if yeah, so the account that we're testing, if you go to the test class,
Yes. Sorry.
yeah, so that account, it has a null value for the number of open tasks field when you create it, right? So it's
Yeah.
going to go through the one part
Oh no,
of
it's
each of.
different. The
Oh,
the
really?
reason the line we're not testing is
Oh,
this one. It's because there's no existing.
yeah,
Um,
that's what I was trying to say. Probably just more roundabout than I needed to.
well, because we're only testing one task here. So in this count map, we'll never have an
Yeah,
instance where we've already gone through and added a task already in that instance.
right. Yeah, that's
So,
exactly.
okay, sorry.
That's all
Um,
right.
so what we're going to do then? Let's quickly take this and let's do one that tests multiple tasks. Multiple, blah, blah, and then task one. And then we're going to do the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a third one in, and this is where we're going to mix it up a little bit.
Oh, are you going to do one test that's going to have multiple
Tasks.
purposes?
Yes. Well, and so it is and it isn't. It is, and like let's just go with it, and then like we
Let's
can
just get
talk.
on with it.
Yeah. So
I never get that syntax right.
I'm not necessarily sure I have yet. So so that should be 2. So let's just save it. So this test, you are correct, is actually doing more than one thing. So let me just run it. And it should test for us that it works with multiple correct ones. There you go. Yeah. So that's fine. So it does test that instance. So a more correct test to write here would have been to do insert multiple tasks, mixed, open, closed.
Sure. Yeah.
And then do another one that is really just this.
Yeah, in theory, you could, like, have a task that gets created with a different parent object as well, just to make
Yeah, oh
sure
yeah.
that bit of logic.
So if we did this, yeah, and I think that's a really good. I think this is a good conversation to have because so yeah, well, let me just do that. We can go through and add that test in a minute. I think that there's a really interesting thing around what you write how many tests you write and what you write tests on. Now, let's start off by again doing the hand waving thing here. This is the simplest example of things you can ever come across. Like in terms of requirements, this is this is basic requirements. However, it is still important to write thorough testing and tests for things. Now, the way in which it's going to come down really is what, there you go, it's all covered nicely, is what logic do you have and what are the different routes? Because at the moment, you are completely correct, Pete. We're not really testing that this is retrieving it and actually looping over the accounts independently. We're just testing that it does this logic correctly. We're testing that it does the completed logic correctly. And we should also test one where it's a what ID that isn't an account.
Yeah.
So those are all tests we should add in. I'm going to suggest that they are ones that we add in the background after. So to do.
Yeah, I think we wanted this to be focused on the trigger, and I mean I think the reality of writing tests is, oftentimes the amount of test code that you write is equal to, if not more than, the amount of other code, the actual the business logic code, I guess you could call it, right?
There should definitely be at least I mean, if you're not hitting a 1-to-1, then like you are doing something. Like there are certain instances I've had that with like utility classes. So if I've got a utility class that I've got one, for example, that calculates HMAC signatures and kind of use. I mean, there's a simple thing in there that Salesforce uses, but it kind of does retrieve custom setting, check the HMAC against it, blah 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 blah. It's about 4 or 5 lines of code in the test, in the actual, or maybe 10 lines of code in the class. But really, what you're doing is you're saying, do these 4 steps. But these 4 steps are really kind of like, this is this part of the key, this is that part of the key, yada yada yada. Those are the instances I think you might get ones which are like near 1-to-1 mapping in terms of numbers of lines and tests. But realistically, you should always like have a load of tests, and for something like this, excuse me, be testing each of the criteria in there and be testing each of the criteria in bulk, because we would also want to have in here, and then we want to have a bulk insert of 200.
Yep.
Or 201. So
yeah,
did you ever come across the reason why for the 201?
What's the batch size that gets used in DML?
Yeah.
So if you're using a DML for loop, or is it a sockle for? No, sockle for loop. You can actually go and retrieve, like you can do like the outer for loop is a list, and then you iterate over the list, and when you do that, it bundles that up into blocks of 200 records. So getting to 201 means you'll at least go through you'll at least go through a second iteration. I thought it had something to do with that, or maybe it has to do with is it the DML batch size for?
So it's triggers batch in 200.
There we go. Yeah.
Data load is limited at max batch size of 200, I think. But the other reason, the reason it's 201 rather than 200 is because you can do 200. And I think it was Simon Connock that told me this, who you'll know from kind of doing the official Salesforce training. So Simon's a very, very experienced Salesforce trainer. But he was saying there was some example he'd come across where if you did 201, you got record locks because it wasn't necessarily batching it. So if you imagine say you had like the same account being updated. So say you had 201 records being inserted against the same account, right? Or say you had, let's make it easy. Say you had 101 against one account and 100 against the other. There's no necessary way in which it won't. They're considered as 2 batches. If it parallelizes them, it can get a record lock. In certain, if you've got triggers and things that fire afterwards. In this simple example, it wouldn't.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
yeah, not going to happen here. But like if you've got, and want to be very clear, it wouldn't happen here. Very, very clear. But like if you had a bunch of ongoing trigger processes, because we all know how code spaghettifies and like fires out, it can then lead to, like a record lock in the background somewhere. So it's a good way of checking that there isn't unknown stuff going on.
So I'm going to give me 1 minute. I have to do just a brief moment of teenager management.
You go do that.
So I will be right back.
No, you be right back. I'm going to continue writing some of these tests. So hopefully people are finding this useful and interesting as well. But yeah, any people. So first of all, thank you for watching and for watching along with us. Has anyone got any particular questions or feedback so far that they wanted to ask? Well, I'm adding in some of these tests for things like multiple accounts. If not, we'll go in. So I also am copying and pasting some of my code here as I write it. Now, there's a great question of like, should you copy and paste your code as much as perhaps I'm doing here? I like to kind of go in and reuse things in the best way possible. So, but you've got to be careful in doing it. Like, it's easily going to blow your leg off if you don't think about it. Like going back and relabeling things here. And then we want to do that's act2.id. There we go. So let's just save that. What have I done wrong? I've not changed the method name. See, that's the peril of going in and just copying and pasting. You forget to update the names properly. So I like running tests and seeing it go green. If you've never worked with TDD before, for those that aren't familiar with it, there is, give me 1 second, a very good book called Test-Driven Development by Example by Kent Beck, which is there on the screen. I can put a link to it in the comments afterwards. This is very much focused on kind of a pseudocode example, from what I remember. It does talk a little bit about XUnit and some of the patterns in there, about clearing up, tearing down. It's really just one of the best books around, well, it's the book around test-driven development if you're interested in seeing something like that, and gives you a good kind of view of it. I recommend, even if you never plan on doing test-driven development, because it is hard with Salesforce to do so, I recommend going away excuse me, and reading that book, because you will learn a lot about things in it. So let's have a look at the what ID and what I could stick in there. Who ID? What ID? Who is the author? It is Kent Beck. Let me do that. Does it show up there? Where's my hand? It's this hand I need to move. Kent Beck. Hope that helps, Conrad. There's that. It is a really, really good book for those who haven't read it. It's the kind of ones that everyone should read are. Where are they? That and. I recommend that. I recommend growing object-oriented software guided by tests, and that's by Steve Freeman and Nat Price. And there is also the Clean Coder books by Robert Martin. Clean Code and the Clean Coder. But I think, as I mentioned, Pablo is coming out with a book soon that'll be similar on that. So definitely one to look at. So I'm looking for an object that I can kind of use as a different what ID. So I'm going to go with campaign because it's a top level object.
All right.
Welcome back.
Coming
Pete.
back.
It's all right.
Am I still connected?
Think so.
I got a notice of it being
Oh no,
disconnected.
it wasn't on purpose. Everyone can vouch. You can watch the recording back. I didn't kick you out. So I was just telling people. I don't know if you've read any of them. That one of the best books to read is Clean. Is Test Driven Development by Kent Beck, and then Clean Coder and Clean Code, Clean Coder, Test Driven Development, and Growing Object Oriented Software Guided by Tests. All of the sort of TDD and kind of good Cody books.
Nice. Yeah, for some reason I am disconnected on LiveShare, so I wonder. It says reconnecting to host. So
should be in a sec. Now, this test I'm writing here is one of those ones that, as I'm writing it, I feel is a bit superfluous. Don't get me wrong. Where what I'm going to do is create a task, assign it to a campaign, and just have the account in the ether, kind of, doing nothing. But I feel like that's fine. I feel like it could be it's a valid test for us to say. So the reason that I think this is a valid test is, number one, like, because of the way in which our data is sandboxed off and kind of cordoned away. It is the only account, so it could be the only one that's updated. We don't have a field on the campaign to do anything, and this is really also just for us to test. We're not going to get a horrific error that we don't know about. It should run, it should insert. There's not going to be a null pointer exception or something along the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sorry about that. So I am disconnected, and I think when I try to reconnect to the same session, it says it's no longer active. So
let me. I found that in the if you go into the StreamYard, Pete, in there is a private chat where I have pinged it in for you.
I do see that. I'll try again.
There you go, 5 tests passing. So the last test I'm going to write, because I think I've done what we had on here real quick, which was I haven't done multiple. No, we've done multiple accounts. We've done non-account what ID. I'm going to do a bulk insert of 201, but how I'm going to do this is as follows. Where's my multiple accounts? Because I like to just make sure we're pulling back as much data. Multiple accounts, half open bulk. This is again, naming these tests is a difficult thing. Like, there's no easy way of naming.
They're just always long names, aren't they?
Oh yeah, like. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say list tasks. What's new list task? And then for integer I equals 0, I is less than 201, I plus.
Oh, I was about to fix that.
Oh, you back on as well with the connection?
I am back on. Yeah, I've managed to reconnect.
So we're going to do a new task. I'm just going to copy this real quick. Where's the one with the account? This is lazy, I know, but it's the easiest way of getting quick tests written. But also tests that are going to show us up exactly what's going on. and then what we want to do is...
It is funny because, I mean, like, yeah, you should always write the bulk test, but like, do people ever bulk insert tasks like that? I mean, like sometimes you think about what the purpose of the object is. Are there any that you can think of that just based on how that object is used ever that you just would never bother on the 201 test?
Not for anything where I'm writing code, because do you remember I said about that strange, crazy situation
The
where,
record lock situation?
well, less the record, not only the record lot situation, but like, so you're completely correct that task is one of those objects that no one in their right mind would use in a way that is going to have 200 tasks inside at once.
Right. Yeah.
No one in their right mind. But that's the problem. Like, is that as I said to you earlier on, I had an instance where that organization were like using it as like a error status handler. So so like I want to make sure that they are gonna deal with it in the most appropriate way possible. Equals, and I also want to do this here. Well, what I'm going to do. So the math mod function, for those who aren't super nerds, is going to divide I by 2, and then if it's divisible by 2, it returns 0, so it's going to be true, and we're going to put it on one account, and it's going to be open, and if it is false, we're going to put it on the other account.
Modulus is such a handy thing to use in so many different circumstances.
Oh, yes. And so we should, for account 1, have I think, if I remember if I make this number correctly, 101 open tasks for them, and we should have 0 open tasks on account 2 because they should all be completed. I think I've got that the right way around. This is where it's going to be wrong, and someone's going to want to rescind my maths degree for like getting that incorrect. There we look, yeah. Expected 0, actual 101. Oh, hello. Number of open tasks is... So all of those should be completed. So that one's correct. Why are we getting 101 here?
Okay.
And it's a good job. So this is really, really kind of cool. I'm glad this happened. I'm glad that I've been shown that I don't know what I'm doing live on like public screen. But but that's from me copying and pasting and just not checking every single thing. This is where these tests are good, because that's not just show me that there isn't an error, but it's more importantly show me there was an error in my tests, and that is way more dangerous than an error in your code, because an error in your test means that you're not actually checking things properly. Here we go. So we got a failure. Yeah. Expected 0, actual 101 still. Okay. Joe, I bet you I've just not updated. No, account 2 ID. Ooh. So where is that? Half open bulk. So this should be coming back as completed, shouldn't it? That's the correct format for a ternary if.
Oh, but you're doing equals to 0 in both case. One of those you should have a remainder, right?
Yeah, but in the instance where it's not equal to 0, it should go down this route for the ternary if. Come on, I'm being silly. Why am I being silly?
Yeah, but they're both equal to 0. That's
yeah, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that like...
Oh, I see. Yeah, never mind. No, I'm attributing the wrong logic to the wrong place. Okay, now I'm with you. Yeah, okay.
Anyone on the stream able to tell us where we're being daft? Come on. I mean, so what I would normally do in this instance, apart from scream, is do the following just to try and see if my logic is really atrocious. If so, what I would do is do something like that. Like I turn this into an if else basically, because whilst I don't believe that it's the best way of writing this logic, it will allow it. If we find that this passes in a second, then it could be that there's formatting incorrectly with my ternary if statement, which would be peculiar, but life's peculiar. So if I do that, and then so are we in agreement that that would do that? Else, and then that should be completed. Okay, and I'll comment out that, and comment out that. Okay, that seems logical because it can't always be. Should go down that path at some point. Expected 0, actual null. That's correct at least because it hasn't set any. Right, so that's working. Why was the ternary if not working then? Is it something as simple as, and I'm going to be annoyed with everything in the world if this is true.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know why. If that were a problem, I would have expected it to not compile or something.
If this is a problem, I'm going to be still just mad about it. Yep, that works. Oh wait, no, failed. No, that still fails. Expected 0, actual null. What?
Oh, that's weird.
Oh wait, no, further down. No, it passed. Sorry, ignore me. Actually passed right down at the bottom. I can rerun it again. Rerun them all. So yeah, that now works. It was seeing it wasn't seeing that as a Boolean by itself.
Wow, that's unexpected. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. So this is where I'm going to do a small second of refactoring as well. Integer remainder. Or actually, come on, Paul. Up here, Boolean mod 2. So if we do that, thank you. And if we remove the clumsily left open bracket and we end it. So I think if we do this though, which, it means it avoids us making repeated calls to math.mod, which
could be a savings, slight savings.
Yeah, like the most minuscule amount of code saving.
Yeah.
So there we go. Apex test successfully ran. Everything has passed.
Well, that's something I wouldn't have expected. So
no, I'm the same. That is.
It feels like I would have done something like that before, and I don't know.
I'm the same. So I'm aware. Even I'll get the words out that we are at our time that we allotted. In fact, we're a few minutes over already. We are too keen. So, Peter and I will be back in 2 weeks' time. I think. We said we were going to do.
This one is 3 because
Yes.
of some scheduling issue.
So for all of those that have watched, thank you so much for watching along. I hope you've enjoyed it. We are going to upload, the video should be available pretty much straight away afterwards, I think. The code we're going to put in a code repository, and I'll put some notes in there, and we'll post up somewhere where you can find out when the next one is, what's going on. If there's any feedback, we'd love to hear it. Please just message myself or Peter, or put a comment on the video.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and if you want to stay up to date with kind of, there you go, let's do that so you can see our faces. If you want to stay up to date with kind of when the next thing is happening, remember to follow the YouTube channel and follow Cloudbytes TV on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you so much, and hope you've enjoyed it. And well, hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have, because I have, at least. I've really liked doing this. Has been good fun for a couple of hours.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that we were able to make this happen. Thanks to everybody who came out and watched, and just so the next one is going to be in 3 weeks time, but then our plan is to get this to sort of an every other week cadence, which we feel like will be hopefully a balance that we can manage.
Yeah,
especially since we don't have to do a lot of prep. We show up, we do some stuff, and then off we go.
This one we don't have to do a lot of prep. There's going to be something that'll like make us actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say make us actually think the amount of mistakes we've both done. Like in this episode, me forgetting exactly where the mod operator goes apparently. But no, we've enjoyed it. Like, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, we're going to try and come up with this a bit more regularly. So stay tuned. And in the next session, so what I think we'll try and do. So, is there any homework you and I want to set ourselves the next couple of weeks whilst we are here? Should we go away and do the update or the delete one or both of them in the background, and then we'll follow the same code principle? So let's
I think that'd be a good goal to set, would be to have, in the trigger, have some, have the update and the delete implemented.
Okay.
And then that kind of sets us up to move right into the refactoring next time. Just be a bit kind of, I don't want it to be too tedious. Like, like once you've implemented the update, it's just the same but different logic, right? So sorry, the insert rather. So and then maybe we can just review that code too, because obviously the update is going to have some conditions probably on it that are a bit more specific than the insert, things like that. And I think one of the things I want to do is see if I can get the null coalescing operator to work in the map assignment, because that was exactly what I thought. Like, could you do map assignment with a null coalescing operator? So I might fiddle around with that. And
I mean, you could do. Yeah, I think you could do.
See what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back in a few weeks, and we'll see what we've got. But
we'll see what we've got.
Yeah, we'll make some notes, and we'll make sure we go. I think the first 10 minutes or so next episode, we can go through and just sort of see what came out of our playings in the background. But again, Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along and watching. Thank you, Peter.
And thanks, everyone.
Cheers all. Catch you all later.
Bye.
Bye now.